Savages, procurement can be scary in your deals, but if you're going to learn how to make a lot of money in software sales, got to learn how to work with them because they're going to be involved in selling massive deals. But no worries, I got you. In this video, what I'm going to break down is the roles of procurement in the organization, where they fit in the structure, and then leave you with 5 things to do when working with procurement to give you the best chance to winning massive deals. So let's dig right in. Number 1 is the roles of procurement. I want you to notice that roles is plural because they wear multiple hats, and it's important for you to think about when you view them in your deals. Number 1, they're not tactical, they are strategic. They're focusing on helping the business achieve outcomes, not just getting better contracts. It's important for you to know that, and I'll talk more about that. Financial. Yes, negotiation is a part of their role, but I want you to think about this as more bigger than that. Helping the organization get the best value for their investment. So it's more than just getting their pound of flesh, and I'll explain more in a minute. Then number 3, assessing risk. When you think about procurement, typically they're in organizations that are pretty large, and there's a lot of different priorities that are getting juggled, different departmets, a lot of budgets moving around. So part of their role is to make sure that there is a cohesive strategy and everything is working appropriately, so the business isn't making a bunch of reckless decisions out of order. So if you think about the different hats that they wear, that should influence how you communicate and work with them. Now moving on, how an org chart looks like in a mature company. Now if you're selling to SMB, there may not even be a procurement person, but think of these as the different hats that they wear. So number 1, chief procurement officer, that's at the top of the food chain. This is the person that's overall responsible for the procurement strategy and how they think about working with their partners in the business. Number 2, below that, there's category managers. So think of category managers as the person that's responsible for managing the relationships with the vendors that they have for the different parts of the business. I gave a couple examples here. It could be operations vendors, marketing, GTM enablement, infrastructure. There's many of them that there could be, but the more mature an organization is, the more category managers there are, because if you're a Fortune 500 company, there could be hundreds, if not thousands, of vendor relationships that you have to manage, which is a lot for one person. So that's why they'll have different people who specialize in different areas, so that can be as valuable as possible for the organization. And then below that, this is the sourcing. These are the people that are ultimately responsible for finding potential vendors. So if you work in sales, you're familiar with an SDR, BDR. Think of this as almost the SDR, BDR for the procurement organization. Again, this is a very mature org, but if you can at least understand the structure of a mature org, then it can help you understand the mindset of someone who works in procurement, even if they're a team of one of the companies that you sell into. So now that you know the structure, let's talk about how their role has evolved, because there's an old way and then there's a new way, and I'm going to break that down step by step. So old way, procurement typically had a short-term tactical mindset, and that's how they were viewed in the organization. Building on that tactical mindset was typically, hey, let's just get our pound of flesh, let's beat up vendors, let's get the best deal possible, and that's all we do. On top of that, very manual of how they worked with contracts, because when they work with a bunch of vendors, everything was done on paper, everything's gone to digital now, but even the processes around vendor relationships, vendor management, very manual historically. So because of that, a good chunk of their time was spent just doing these manual processes around the contracts and agreements. And then from a compensation standpoint, I'm a big believer that compensation influences behavior. So historically, procurement professionals were typically bonused on money that they saved on contracts, which would make a lot of sense, because if my bonus is paid based on money that I save on contracts, then I'm going to beat up vendors on price pretty hard. But there's a new way of how they think about that and the other things. So the new way of how the procurement role has evolved in companies, they're not tactical anymore. The companies that are really forward-thinking, they're having their procurement professionals thinking more long-term and having a strategic lens into the business. And they're not just beating vendors up on price. They're seen internally as someone who's a strategic partner to the business. So historically, they were put in the corner and then brought in at the 11th hour just to negotiate further. Now they're involved much earlier in the process because they're seen as a strategic partner. Again, going back to the roles that I talked to earlier. Because of technology and software and how this has evolved, a lot of the manual aspects of the role, the tedious things, those have been automated, which frees up more of their time to do more of the strategic focus areas that I just talked about a minute ago. And then from a compensation standpoint, it's more about the health of the bottom line of the business, because it doesn't matter how much money you save in a contract if that contract ultimately doesn't benefit the business. So this is more how their compensation structure is evolving over time. So it's important for you to know how this is evolving and way for you to think about when you're working with procurement professionals. How are they communicating? How are they working with the business partners that they have? Because that can help you understand whether or not the company that you're selling into are part of the old way, or are they more the forward thinking, because that can help influence how you work with them. So building on this, how do we work with these guys? How do we do it effectively? How do we set ourselves up for success? What are the things that we don't do? So there's 5 things to consider and do when you work with procurement. Number 1, treat them as decision makers. They have desired outcomes. They have focuses. What are they? Because that's going to be really important for you to align with them if you don't think of them as just negotiators. Number 2, internalize their strategic importance to the organization. I keep going back to this, and I'm doing that for a reason. They're more than just negotiators. You have to understand they are a partner in the business. So thinking about them as a partner, if you're working with a strategic account and someone who's the head of a business unit, you're not just going to be transactional with them. You're going to try to position yourself as a trusted advisor. And one of the things that I encourage you to do is to provide insights to them, just like you would with someone who's a head of sales. And if you could do this before the projects are initiated, that's going to elevate your status when working with these procurement professionals, which is going to help you differentiate yourself from other sales professionals that they've worked with in the past. Procurement professionals commonly have a process for doing a return on investment analysis, ROI, evaluating the business value. Offer assistance in doing that. Don't go into a black box, give them an ROI and say, here you go. And on the other side, don't just let them do their own ROI without you. Offer partnering with them and providing data points and align with them on how they do the ROI process, because that can help you stand out and increase the chances for success. Number 3, don't wait till the end of the cycle. Engage with them early on. And ideally, you're engaging at multiple levels, from chief procurement officer all the way down to sourcing. Now, at the end of the day, the companies that you're going to be selling into, there's a good chance most of them don't have all of these levels built out. And I'm not saying you have to connect with every single one of them and build really deep relationships, but at least starting that process early in the cycle is going to go a long way. And usually you're going to have to start with the sourcing or category managers and work your way up to chief procurement, just like you would in the business trying to get above the power line. But I still want you thinking about them as more than an afterthought to negotiate at the end of the cycle, and someone that you engage with early in the cycle. And I want you to think about, when you're meeting with them and connecting with them, think about this as more of a relationship than a transaction. And I'm going to go for point 5 to build on this even further. Key point, don't get stuck with them. When you're selling strategic deals, you're going to have different decision makers on the business, on the technical side, and then on the paper process legal side. This is where sales professionals can get stuck with procurement, and then your deal stalls and is in limbo. So you should have relationships, not only with procurement, but with the business and the technical decision makers in your deals. So don't get stuck with procurement. It should be a continuing conversation with procurement and the other folks in your deal to prevent it from stalling. Number 4, respect their process. They have a process. They're human beings just like you. They need to make sure they check the boxes, cross their T's, dot their I's. So respect that, understand that, seek to understand what that is, and don't wait till the end to just rush a negotiation. Because if you're doing that, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lower your status because you're not treating them as a key part of the deal. You're treating them with your actions as an afterthought. So don't wait till the end to do that. Take some time, connect to them early, and ask them, hey, what are the steps in your process for making a decision? Do you have specific criteria that you follow? Learn what it is and do your best to align to it and build that in to your mutual action plans that you put in place for your accounts. And then last but not least, if you're in strategic sales, I cannot underestimate the importance of this, is you need to think long-term. This isn't just about one transaction. This is about you building a relationship with them. If you're in strategic enterprise sales, it's quite common for you to have the same accounts for multiple years. So if you think very short-sighted, not only will you decrease your chances of winning the deal in front of you, but even if you do win that deal, you're going to burn the chances of you building a relationship with them for the next evaluation. So I want you to think beyond just the sale. And if you could support their goals and understand what they care about and make their life easy, that's going to go a long way to help you not only be successful short-term, but long-term. So my name is Justin J. Johnson, founder of the Beautiful Savage Sales Academy. I want you to use this, implement it, go burn it down. I'll see you in the next video.